Well, we're excited that you're here today. Whatever brings you here, if this is your church home or you're a guest here, welcome. We're really excited you've come at a great time because we're going to begin today this new sermon series, this new message series entitled Change. Because no matter who we are, no matter where we're from, where we're at in our journey, we all have things about us that we'd like to change. Now, we're going to start off a little differently. We don't always do participation interaction at this point, but we're going to today. I'm going to put a verse on the screen. Matter of fact, you can go ahead and throw that up there if you want. It's an easy one. It's one you've seen in a bunch of places, right? Philippians 4:13. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. Now, the participation part is, we're going to say that together out loud here in just a second. But let me preface it, right? Even if you don't believe it, even if you are extremely introvert, just play along for the good of the person next to you, okay? For no other reason other than just to make the people around you feel good. All right? So let's read through it together, right? I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. All right, one more, but this time like you actually believe it and mean it, okay? So the first time was just for the good of others around you. This time, like we really mean it, okay? I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. All right, now here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that, set it off to the side, and just hold on to that for a minute, okay? We're going to get back to that eventually, but before we do that, I want to shift gears a little bit and show you something different. Put the next slide up there for me. This is a Ferrari 458. Has over 600 horsepower. It can get to 0 to 60 in, about that long. It is one of the fastest cars. Not the fastest, but it's one I really like. No, I don't have it. No, I'm never going to be in the ballpark of owning a $250,000 car. But if someone ever felt so led as to gift us, right? We don't have church vans, but I think we could transport a lot of people in that, right? What we lack in seats, we would make up for in speed. So, just saying. But there's one problem with that car. Anybody see the problem? Yeah, it's a flat tire, right? That car has tremendous power, tremendous potential, and yet it's not going to go very far. It's not going to do very much with that flat tire. Right, now pretend for just a minute that you're a mechanic. Now for some of you that's a stretch because you know nothing about mechanics. That's okay. But pretend you're a mechanic and I bring you my car here and I say, hey, when I get it up to about 60, everything starts to rattle and shake and fall apart and I can't figure out what's going on. Your response to me would be it has a flat tire, right? No, that can't be it, right? That's not the problem. What it is, I got it. It's the paint color, right? You guys will love this because it's red, so that's got to be the problem is the red. We need to paint it orange, right? That would fix all the problems. No? It wouldn't? I would. All right, it's got to be the radio then. Right? If I can get a radio in there that plays everything from an 8-track to Pandora. Some of you have no idea what 8-tracks are, but that's good because the other half has no idea what Pandora is. Right? But it means you can play anything. If I get a radio that plays anything that you stop at the stoplight, you crank it up and the stoplight falls down, your bass is so heavy, right? That would fix the problem, right? No, of course not. I know. It's where it's at. It's the location, right? If I were to move this car to, say, Texas or Missouri or Kansas, that would solve all the problems, right? No. You see, the trouble is with flat tires, they follow you wherever you go until you do what? Until you fix it. Until you change it, right? And so my question for you this morning is, what's your flat tire? Spiritually. What is it that's holding you back from the power, from the potential that God's created you to have? Right? Because we do that. We make up all these excuses, right? Well, if I just get a makeover, if I just get my hair done, get a new tattoo, change some clothes, that'll fix it. I'll feel better. Everything will be good again. Well, if I just change locations, if I just move to another state, move to another city, move to another job, move to another relationship, move to another... You know the problem with relocating? You go with you wherever you go. So relocation may be the answer, but you may need to fix your flat tire before you go. What's your flat tire? What is it that's preventing you? And listen, we all have one thing. Some of you are sitting here today thinking, listen, I've got 4 flat tires and the windows are busted out. I get that. Right? Life can get messy sometimes, but we all have at least one. We got to start somewhere. So what's your one thing? What's the one thing that's keeping you from fulfilling the potential and the power that God created you to have? Because this series, what we're going to talk about today and in the coming weeks, it's not about being a better person. It's about being who God created you to be. It's about fulfilling the design that the Creator God gave you when He imagined you, when He breathed life into you, when He created you and put you on this planet to walk the earth. And so what we want to do is we've got to think, all right, what is it? Now for some of you, you're already ready to go to lunch because the second I said, what's your flat tire, you knew exactly what yours was. But the pushback for some is, but it'll never change. I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what's holding me back, but it's been this way so long, it'll never change. But let me remind you what you said just a few minutes ago. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength. So it doesn't matter how long you've had that flat tire. It doesn't matter how bad things seem. You can do this because God can do this through you. Right? And that verse doesn't say, hey, I can do everything except for His stuff, because it's really messed up. Except for her stuff, because it's just more than I've ever seen. God says, I can do it all. I can do everything. But you can do it only when I'm in you, only when I give you strength. So what I want to do today is I want to, with that in mind, kind of walk you through this process of how do we get there? How do we get to fixing our flat tires? How do we get to changing what it is that's holding us back in our life? And there's a couple of 3 things, right? The first one is this. You can't be changed. You can't have change in your life until you see it as a necessity. You can't have change. You can't fix that flat tire until you acknowledge that there is a flat tire. You've got to be aware of it. You've got to admit that something's wrong. If you know anything about 12-step programs, right? The first step to overcoming it is admitting that you have a problem. And so this idea of being aware that something's wrong, being aware that something needs to change. Because again, we said that car has tremendous power and potential, but it can't use it till you fix the problem, but you can't fix the problem till you admit that it's there. And so in our lives, as we follow this journey, we've got to figure out, what is it about us? What do we need to deal with? What do we need to change? What do we need to invite God into so that He can begin to make a difference in our life? We're gonna illustrate this today through a really big story, and probably no matter what your level of church background, you've at least heard of the story of the prodigal son or the lost son. It's a huge story. There's so much we're not going to be able to cover today, but I think it illustrates perfectly this idea of change in our life. And so pick it up, if you would, in Luke chapter 15. It begins in verse 11. It says, and Jesus continued. Right? He's been telling some stories. He's been telling some things. And then he goes on to tell one more. He said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. Now, you're not a good Jewish crowd, because if you were, when I read that line, you would have said, oh, like that. Because in essence, what the son is saying is, Dad, I wish you were dead. Right? Because you didn't get your inheritance until Dad passed on. So the son doesn't just look at his dad and say, Dad, I'd like a little allowance money. Dad, could you give me a little pocket change? No. He says, Dad, I wish you were dead. Would you just get out of here, old man, so that I can have what's coming to me? Slightly more offensive, right? But that's what he's saying. He said, I want my inheritance. Give me my share of the estate. And so, he divided the property between them. The father and son have a relationship. Yes, we can all agree on that. And yet, the son chose to walk away. And yet the son chose to have this thing between him and his dad. Now here's why I pause and mention that, because there's a lot of good intention but completely wrong people out there who say, hey, if you really love Jesus, you'll never walk away from him. That's just not true. In my line of work, I've seen it enough time. People that wholeheartedly love Jesus, things happen, circumstances come up, events, temptations, addictions, and they walk away from Jesus. So to say, oh, I love Jesus, it'll never happen to me, it's just not true. The other myth of, well, if you love Jesus, you'll never have a flat tire. That's not true either, because do you know Christians that have flat tires? Don't point, but, right? He goes on and says, after he had, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, remember that, and there he squandered his wealth in wild living. He's off running amok. Did he still have a relationship with the father? Yes. He was still his father. They still had a relationship. He was just someplace he should have never been, doing things he should have never been doing. It didn't change the fact that he had a relationship. It just changed how that relationship looked. And so here he is. He's off doing something he shouldn't be doing. And after he had spent everything, and that's what sin always does, right? It costs us far more than we ever thought it would. There was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. He had no idea, did he? He never saw the famine coming. Because see, we don't control what happens to us and what happens around us. He had no idea. These were external circumstances happening in ways that he couldn't predict, he couldn't have understood. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of the country, who sent him to the field to feed pigs. And he longed for his stomach, to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. And again, to a Jewish crowd, this is the ultimate flat tire. This is the most disgusting thing imaginable. This was rock bottom. This was the lowest of lows. This was as far down as he could possibly go. There's two phrases in the back end of this story I want to focus on today. And the first one starts in 17. When he came to his senses. When the son who had been wandering, when the son who was lost, when the son who had hit rock bottom, when he came to his senses, when he acknowledged that things weren't the way they were supposed to be, when he saw change as a necessity, when he hit rock bottom, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? In other words, he said, this may be how things are, but this isn't how things have to be. There can be change. Change is necessary for him at this moment. He says, that's just not the way it is. And listen, oftentimes we can't help those who are in horrible situations until they admit that there's a problem. Until they themselves come to their senses and acknowledge that they're in a horrible situation. See, because as long as we call it an issue, as long as we call it something we're praying through, right? If you see me on the side of the road and my car has a flat tire and I'm laying hands on my car and just praying over it, would you stop and slap me? Because that's not going to get it done, is it? I'm not saying don't pray. You should always pray. But there's times in which we pawn off our activity. We pawn off our sin, our stuff. Oh, I'm praying through it. Or it's just an issue I'm dealing with. Or I'm sure. No. It's a sin. There's a flat tire there. There's something that's keeping me from being and doing what I need to do. And if I've got a flat tire, I need to get the lug wrench out. I need to get the jack out. I need to get the spare out. And I need to change it. I don't need to talk to God about it. God's already told me how to change the spare tire. I need to do something. And for some of you, you know what your spare tire is, and you need to do something about it. It's time to stop categorizing. It's time to stop rationalizing and justifying. And it's time to get in conversation with God, to get in front of Him, and to deal with it. Not just talk about it. But we've got to admit it. We've got to see the necessity of change. Because until we do, nothing's ever going to change. See, what I know about my life is I know the things in my life that need to change. Sometimes I don't know how to change it. Talk to God about that. But God's not going to lead us into something He can't lead us through. And so as we find ourselves in that transition, as we find ourselves in that process of change, we've got to begin to work through it. And here's the reality, right? Because some of you say, I know what needs to change, but it's not going to be easy. Well, of course it's not going to be easy. It wasn't easy for the prodigal son. I mean, he didn't know how the journey would end. He didn't know where he would go. He didn't know how he would be received. He had no idea what the next steps were. But when he came to his senses, he knew he had to do something. I wrote in my notes as I was preparing this that, listen, just because change is necessary doesn't mean it's easy. Which is why I need His strength in me. I can do all these things through Him who gives me strength. Doesn't mean they'll be easy. Doesn't mean it won't have consequences. Doesn't mean it won't have long-term effects. But I can do it because of Him who gives me strength. See, the bad news is that if you don't have Jesus in your life, there's no guarantee that you can change anything. But the good news is, with Jesus in your life, you can do all things. Because He'll give you strength. Because He'll see you through. Because He will lead you into that. And anything and everything can change. But until you see it as a necessity, nothing will ever change. Which leads us to point number 2. You can't be changed until you take responsibility. See, you got to see it as necessity, but you've also got to take responsibility for it. I was thinking about it in terms of flat tires, right? There's really 3 reasons you have a flat tire. The first one makes absolutely no sense, but I guess it could happen, right? If you flatten your own tire, I don't know why you would do that. Maybe you had a test, you didn't want to go to school, and so, stab the tire, it's done, and you can't go. I don't know why you would do that. We do that spiritually a lot, right? We sabotage ourselves. The second reason is somebody else flattens your tire. I remember in high school we found this cool little trick. If you take a super small pebble, you put it right on the valve cap, and then you screw the cap down under it, it would let all the air out, and your friends can't figure out why the tires are flat. High school kids, you're welcome. We've just educated you on how to do things that you should probably never do. The third one, right? Circumstances. I remember just last summer, Amanda and I and the kids were going down to Austin for a wedding. We're already running late because of weather and different stuff, and we're just clipping down the highway, and then all of a sudden, right, we hit something in the road. I have no idea, never saw it, don't know what it was. Tire goes down. I'm on the side of the road. I was already in a suit ready for the wedding. It's 160 billion degrees in Texas, and I'm on the side of the road changing a flat tire. Didn't put the thing in the road, didn't see it, didn't plan for it, didn't want it, right? But the circumstances, so maybe you flatten your own, maybe somebody flattens your tire for you, or maybe just some circumstances. But see, the reality is it doesn't matter how your tire got flat. It doesn't matter how you found yourself in this until you're willing to take responsibility for it. Right? See, because notice the son doesn't just sit back and he sits in the pig pen and he's all covered in muck and he's hungry and he's upset and he says, you know what, this is my dad's fault. He should have never gave me all that money anyway. I wouldn't be here if he hadn't have. Well, this is really my mom's fault. She's not even mentioned in this story. Where's she at? Off playing around and not helping me out, giving me better advice, and that's my brother's fault. Right? He was the favorite. If he hadn't been the favorite, I wouldn't have wanted my money. I wouldn't have gone. It's everybody else's fault. I'm just going to sit here in the mud. You know why the story doesn't read like that? Because if it did, he'd still be in the mud, and Jesus would have said there was a young man, he wanted all his father's wealth, he took it, he went to a faraway country, he spent all he had, famine came, he sat in the mud, and he died. Not a very good story, right? See, there's some of us, we need to stop blaming everyone else, and we need to take responsibility for our flat tire. Now listen, don't get me wrong, right? We all have sad stories. We all have things, and I don't say that flippantly or lightly. Right? As a minister, as a pastor, you hear story after story that happens to people, and it just breaks your heart, and you cry with them. I know what some of your stories are. They're tragic. But listen, you still have to take responsibility. Not blame, right? But you can take responsibility. You maybe can't control what has happened to you, how people have treated you, what has been done to you, but you can take responsibility for how you move forward. For the attitude you have moving forward into something new. So I'm not saying you take the blame. Listen, if the blame's yours, take it. But if not, you still have to take responsibility for the circumstance and do something about it. Somebody has flattened your tire. Jesus can help you fix it, but you've got to take the responsibility to say, there it is, it's my problem now, let's go fix it. Let's do something about it. See, the boy in the pig pen, he didn't simply say, oh, well, you know what, this famine's going to come, and he never saw the famine coming. There are external circumstances that you will never be able to predict. And we can all make excuses. Ooh, we can all make reasons why. It's just the way I am. Right? I'll never be able to change. That's just the way that's just the way I was born. Well, of course you were born that way. I've told you 100 times, right? Babies are cute, but they're cute little sinners. Right? Of course you're born that way. We've all got problems. We've all got issues. But listen, when you come to know Christ, when you are reborn in Christ, Christ says, you're not reborn that way. So for a Christian, I was just born that way is never an option. Because when you were reborn, you were made perfect. You were made. You've got to take responsibility. You've got to begin to, yes, somebody has harmed you, but you don't have to let them continue to harm you for the rest of your life. Victims never walk in victory. And we follow a God, we follow a Savior who walked out of a tomb victorious over death. So it's time to walk in victory. It's time to stop walking as victims, take responsibility, and begin to move into a new life on the other side. Some really terrible things. The other side. Some really tragic events. The other side of new life in Christ. But the third thing is true as well. See, because you can't begin to change till you begin to live obediently. See, it wasn't enough that the son just knew he had a problem. It wasn't just enough for the son to say, hey, this is my fault, I got myself here. He also had to do something about it. He had to get up and begin to move in the direction of the Father. So I ask again, what's your flat tire? Right? What is it? Put a name on it. What is your flat tire? Is it the person you're dating and you know you don't need to be in that relationship? Is it that addiction? Is it that abuse of alcohol or drugs? See, it gets really tense when we start to name these things, right? As long as they're just issues, we're okay with it. But when we identify it, when we put a name on it, it gets awkward. Because see, for some of us, it's that affair. For some of us, it's that, and you know what it is for you. What's your flat tire? What is it that's keeping you? And listen, we all have something we need to change, and I can't promise you today that admitting it and talking about it is going to give you a positive, is going to give positive effects in your life immediately. I just can't promise that. I don't know what that journey is going to look like, but I know what the end of that journey looks like. See, because when we take a step in the direction of the Father, when we begin to move just as He moved, right? Things begin to get better. Things begin to, not easier, but better, right? You didn't break it overnight, so it's not going to be fixed overnight. I know you'll find this hard to believe, but early on in marriage, Amanda and I had an argument. We won't talk about what that argument was, but we'll say that I discovered really quickly in that argument, get this, big surprise, I was wrong. I know, you're as shocked as I was, because I was pretty confident that I was never going to be wrong ever again, and I found out 99.9% of all the other arguments we ever had in our marriage, that it was my fault, right? And so I did what I think I'm supposed to do, and I wouldn't apologize and everything. And I remember, again, this was early on in marriage, and I remember I looked at her and said, hey, are we okay? And the response I got was, yeah. Doesn't feel like we're okay. Are you sure? Like, do I need to apologize for anything else I've done or thought or looked at or blinked or anything? Moved in the... No, we're fine. And I kept pressing, and then I remember this genius bit of insight that my wife gave me that I still struggle with, in which she said, I just need time to process this. That's good advice, right? But as a man, and men are dumb, most of us, especially 16 to 22-year-olds, no offense, I was one once, right? How much time? Right? Because I get this mindset of, I want to fix it, I want to fix it, I want to fix it. It took me 6 months to break it, but I want it fixed like that. That's not how it works, right? When we begin to live obediently, it doesn't change all the circumstances. It doesn't erase all the consequences. But it puts us on a path home. It puts us on the path back to right relationship. And that's what the Son did. That's what the Son began to do. So pick up the rest of the story there, right? It begins in verse 18. He says, here's what I will do. He's taking responsibility. He's admitting, I will go back to my Father. And I'll say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So, he got up and he went to his father. He's at rock bottom. He's in a pig pen. And yet he gets up and he says, you know what? Something's got to change. He came to his senses. He said, I don't have to live like this anymore. I can be different, I can do different, I can have different. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to begin to take one step. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get home. I don't know how I'm going to be received when I get there. I don't know what my father's going to say. I don't know what my brother's going to say. I don't know, but I do know this. It's got to be better than this. And for some of you, that's where you're at today. You don't know what the journey's going to look like, but you know that it's got to be better than where you're at. And so we do what the Son does. We get up. We begin to move in the direction of God. We begin to move in the direction of the Father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled, not with anger, not with condemnation. He's filled with compassion, because that's what God is. He's full of compassion. So he's filled with compassion for him, and he ran to his son, and he threw his arms around him, and he kissed him. Then he said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. And here's the second phrase. But the father said. The father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe, put it on him. Bring the ring on it, put it on his finger, the sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For the son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. The boy was dirty and tired and weak. And all he wanted was something better. But the father said, bring the robe. The father said, bring the ring. The father said, bring the fatted calf and the sandals. The father said, you're not just welcome here, you're welcome and restored here. And for some of you, you're saying, you know what? I know what my flat tire is. I know what my next step is, but I'm too tired. I'm too far gone. It's been too long. It's been too much. I can't. But the Father said that with His strength, you can do all things. The Father said, in Him, you can overcome any flat tire. But the Father said, welcome home. close today, I want you to have that in mind. Know what your flat tire, know what your next step is, know the next thing that you need to change, that you need to work on. But I also want you holding on to that verse that says, you can. You can overcome. You can see it through. You can get through it because God did not intend you to live with flat tires. God has made you with potential. He's designed you with power. And He wants to help fix whatever is keeping you from that. So go ahead and stand up with me if you would. As we get ready to close in a prayer, we're going to offer an invitation. I'm going to pray, we're going to sing, we're going to do lots of stuff as we close today, but what I want you to know is we've got staff, we've got volunteers, we have elders waiting in the back to pray with you, because there's some of you today who your next step is just to tell someone else what your flat tire is. Just to ask somebody to pray with you, maybe somebody to pray for you because you don't know how to pray yourself. Heads bowed and eyes closed. Heavenly Father, we ask you into this place at this time, God. God, would you let us hear your voice? Would you let us hear the Father say that we can, that there's second chances, that there's grace, there's mercy, there's forgiveness. But God, right now as we talk to you, as our heads are bowed and our eyes closed, would you just, the people in the room right now who know what their flat tire is, if you need help with that, if you need to talk, would you just right where you're at, just go ahead and step out in your aisle and move to the back. There's nobody watching. There's already volunteers ready to pray with you. But God, there's also people here who need to surrender their life. They can't do all things because they don't know you. They don't have a relationship with you. Would you just right now move to the back? If you need to ask somebody, how do I get this relationship? How do I get access to this power? Now's the time to just step out and move and ask. God, today we thank you for welcoming us home. We thank you that what you say is far greater than what the fear and the doubt and the guilt and the shame says about us. So today as we sing and we praise, would you continue to lead people, to help them step out? As we're going to sing about following you, God, would we just follow your call to us as we step out, as we take our next step, as we begin our journey home? We pray it all in your Son's name.